And we all know why they gave it to Hal. Two women in the White House just doesn't go well with Americans. Hello there. Today we are here to check out the Diplomat season 3 review. I'm trying to get some extra details because hey, maybe I missed something that happened during the show. The last cliffhanger, these cliffhangers they be leaving us on are crazy, but it always makes me excited for the next season. Not sure if they have another season yet for this show, but I believe there will be, just based on how everything plays out. But of course, they've done made this plan to screw over the Brits, and it didn't go so well because now we got to figure out a way, or Kate has to figure out a way to fix the problem, which she always seems to do. I don't understand how Hal got president before she did, but maybe I have a theory that maybe if it's possible, he'll be president and then she'll take over. But that would be following the plot of the first and second season, right? Because Grace becomes the president. So I'm interested to see how they take the dynamics between everyone. And Kate is the perfect person, though. Honestly, she wouldn't have had these issues. She's more level-minded in her thinking, I believe, and she has more of the facts. She weighs all the options out, and so I'm interested to see what I may have missed in season 3. So we're gonna watch this video by Brain Pilot. This is the the Diplomat season 3 review. So if you guys, don't mind, go ahead and give them subscribe over there and like their video as well. We support the channels we love on YouTube and we appreciate them. So let's go ahead and check out this review. Let's watch.
The Diplomat is back with season 3 of the show, and unlike a lot of TV series in the modern age of television, it took less than a year for it to return to our screens. As I was watching this season, I was thinking to myself how this could potentially be the best that we've had out of the 3. With it being heavily focused on internal politics from a relationship point of view, and the end of the final episode giving us an even bigger cliffhanger than last season with the president dying. War now looks like it could well be on the horizon. So with that, let's dive into the ending of season 3 and break down all that there was to take away from it.
Exactly. They're basically pushing us into another war at this point because um everybody wants to be in control. Everybody wants to have power, which I guess makes us look the strongest, right? We want to have the best, and America, of course, wants to have the best military. So of course they're gonna want, the Poseidon, more than anybody else. So of course they're gonna take this opportunity and get it. This is exactly what Showbiz was saying they were gonna do in the episode. So, he just proved them right there.
Here is the Diplomat Season 3 ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers.
Yes, it will.
The ending explained. When it came to the ending of this season, there was a massive core theme that had underpinned the entirety of it. This was all about Kate feeling like she'd been living in Hal's shadow after establishing her own identity, and it almost being like she was reliving the past.
Exactly.
When the both of them were first together in Baghdad, within the flashback, we saw that she followed him to Vienna without thinking about it after they got engaged. And then within the modern day timeline, with Kate expecting to be given the role of vice president, it was instead offered to Hal, meaning that she was simply just the second lady now. However,
and we all know why they gave it to Hal. Two women in the White House just doesn't go well with Americans. That people can't fathom the fact that a woman could be president or vice president, which I kind of get, but it's just like, you know, are if they're the right people. But I get it. Men and a woman dignify strength, so I get why, and it'll make people more at ease because they're like, hey, at least we got one. But a woman being president at all is kind of crazy. But yeah, so we know why Hal became the president. Just looks good for optics for America.
she held on to the role of ambassador as she didn't want to walk away from that responsibility. This was a balance that she struggled with, as we saw her emotions getting the better of her on occasions, and even when in the professional environment, she would speak about Hal from a personal perspective rather than a professional point of view. something which went against her on multiple occasions when it came to advising the president on the decisions that she should have been making. Within this season, the relationship between the UK and the United States was rocky because, due to intel of a Chechen colonel named Andreev, he was going to leak that the Americans were involved in the planning of the attack on the HMS Courageous by working with Margaret Roylan. Grace
Mm.
thought it'd be best to blame it on the deceased President Rayburn instead of admitting her involvement.
Well, ultimately that was Kate's idea, and then everyone agreed that that should be what we do because he's already dead, right? Let's go ahead and throw him under the bus. We already made a decision that, you know, literally caused the lives of people to be taken. So it would look worse for us to say that the now current president made that call than to say that the former president, who everyone loves. So it's like a lesser of two evils, I would say. But yeah.
And in exchange of the US stepping in and saving the economy of the UK, the US's involvement would be kept out of it, and Royland would be the sole person that got blamed. However, Prime Minister Trowbridge went against her and blamed Rayburn in a press conference. This then tied into the mistrust that was present between the nations, and then when it came to the fact that there was a Russian sub which contained a nuclear weapon called the Poseidon that was far
Mhm.
ahead of its time, 12 miles beneath the water of the northeast coast of the UK, which the
Yep.
United Kingdom didn't have the means of being able to retrieve, the United States wanted to repair the relationship between them by offering their services. This was in response to the UK going to China and potentially allowing them to retrieve the sub, which would place the nuclear weapon in their hands.
And China is like right behind us. Like, as far I mean, you could argue that China is like, you know, close, but that we can't let they already, at a point. So
Trowbridge didn't trust Grace Penn, and even after Penn sent down a sub to take photos of it to prove that it was carrying the weapon, he was still uncertain. It took Hal telling Kate to persuade Trowbridge to bury the sub instead of retrieving it and not allow any nation to have it because it was an immense amount of power for the relationship to be repaired.
which would
However,
be a
the big
reasonable
cliffhanger right at the
ask.
end showed that when the US sent down the drones to take the photos, they didn't just send drones, they sent down an Ohio based submarine, and when they did that, they retrieved the Poseidon, which placed it in the hands of the United States.
Which is honestly a rash decision because you're just not thinking about the consequences of what that could do for the UK, because now the UK is going to look like they stole it, or somebody else is going to look like they're stole it, and Russia is going to be mad about that. They're going to retaliate. I mean, if real life isn't an example, I don't know what else is.
It was noticed that the weapon was gone because the radiation levels in the water had dropped by 60%, which indicated that it was no longer there. The consequence of the weapon being gone meant that Russia would perceive the United Kingdom to have stolen their weapon and it be seen as an act of war, meaning that they could well retaliate. And then also, if the United Kingdom cottoned onto the fact that it was the United States that took the weapon, that would also be seen as an act of war too, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that the US would be viewed as an enemy of the Brits. So,
Yep.
whilst the United States got the weapon, it could come at a great consequence, as there could be a war that spans across the different sides of the globe. So, from a global standpoint in the story, it's the most tense it's ever been, and there's an even bigger cliffhanger than what we got at the end of season 2.
Yep.
From a more isolated perspective, this was an act of betrayal that Hal carried out on Kate. Kate had realised throughout this season that she was essentially just jumping from one version of her husband to another, with it being Austin and then Callum. And that with him helping her out during the meeting, she realised that she wanted to be with him and actually be the second lady for real, not just for show and for the press. But with Hal using Kate as a pawn in part of his wider plan that he proposed to the president in taking the weapon, she felt used and like he was being dishonest as it involved her in the scheming that she didn't want to be a part of. Kate thought she went on a journey, and Hal normally did the singular acts of heroics for her, but in this instance, he did the acts of heroics for Grace, the person that originally didn't want him to be vice president. This then connected right back to the beginning of the season when she was overlooked for being vice president, where her voice wasn't
Mm-hmm.
truly heard, and what she said basically fell on deaf ears,
Yep.
showing that
I mean, honestly, Hal was the one taking the initiative trying to get her to become president, but Kate wants them to see that she deserves it just off of merit. Just she doesn't want to have to go in there and beg for it. But honestly, sometimes if you want something, you're gonna have to go in there and fight for yourself. And Hal doing what he did, he basically secured him a spot because he showed his character in that situation. He showed how loyal and how trustworthy he could be to the president. So that's why she ultimately probably ended up choosing him. She saw his character through what he was doing.
That she was now back to following him around for the progression of his career, whilst she was mirroring the likes of Todd, Grace's husband, the man that felt like a lost cause because he was inferior to his partner as she was the
I actually
president of
liked
the
him this
United
season. He was
States.
funny.
Nothing Kate could do would match Hal, and Hal was always going to be the person that people wanted to meet with, as we saw throughout the season. So
Hmm.
it's a mindset and a position that I imagine we're going to see her in when the show returns next season, especially when it comes to holding on to such a large secret. My review of the season. I actually really enjoyed this season of the show.
Same.
Not that I didn't expect to, but I thought the more personal and intimate approach that it had, which allowed us to take a deeper dive into the characters' relationships and how their
Exactly.
roles impacted their day-to-day lives, felt a bit more enjoyable, and like we got to know them better. I also liked the fact that there wasn't another catastrophe that was introduced to the story to develop the plot forward, but instead, the information about the previous attack rising to the surface was a great choice.
Yes, very good storytelling from this show from start to now. Now that I think about it, because they connect the plot so well together, and it's played out in a way that is interesting, but also in a way that you don't expect. So it's a wonderful show. If you haven't checked out this show, you should. I mean, if you're watching this far into the video, you should have checked it out. But I just have to throw out there, very good show. They haven't let me down yet. So I've watched every season. I've been watch binge binge watched through each season so far. So yeah.
I almost feel like this season took a bit of a leaf out of the TV series Succession's book. It felt like there was internal politics with relationships that were just as valuable as the ones that were going on from an international perspective,
Which
and
is
it
real
brought a
life.
completely different feel to the show. It was a great move for the showrunner to make. I also thought the score felt quite inspired by Succession too. I don't know if it was
I
done
haven't actually
deliberately,
watched
but
this
it
section.
almost made the show feel like it had a new lease of life, so I hope it continues in that way. In terms of the performances, I thought they were all pretty strong. Rufus Sewell as Hal really stood out to me in this season. Seeing him with more responsibility and being the vice president allowed him to have more screen time, and it showed us a side to him where we didn't just see him mourning the relationship with Kate, so I liked that. I also thought Alison Janney as Grace Penn delivered a strong performance too. You really do buy that powerful nature that she has as president, and she's the perfect casting. Rory Kinnear as Prime Minister Trowbridge is both serious but also quite comical at the same time.
Yeah, he
He's so
is.
ridiculous in his attitude that it does actually have me chuckling on occasions.
Same.
And then finally, when it comes to Kate, Kerry Russell did a solid job as per usual. Kate is a character that I struggled to like, but I think that's kind of the point. She's
Yeah.
always coming and going, and it's
Uh,
difficult to
I think it's conflicting with her. I think my emotions with Kate are conflicting at times because sometimes I like her, sometimes I love her. Certain things about her. But I mean, like he said, I think that is the point of her character and how she plays her.
truly get behind her. Whilst the main stories were interesting, I did also quite enjoy seeing the likes of Idra and Stuart dealing with the moral decisions that
Yeah,
were
it
being
wasn't
made that
bad.
were out of his control, but him feeling responsible because he's being represented by the wider organization. In terms of if this season is worth a watch, I'd say it definitely is. It's the best season in my opinion, and like I said, the more contained nature that it had is something that really allowed it to flourish and made me feel even more immersed. So put it on over the weekend,
Don't
binge
bring my immersion, brother.
away, and get lost within it. I'm just intrigued to see the state of the world in the show when it returns for its fourth season. As we know, it's already been renewed.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you have it. The Diplomat Season 3 ending explained.
Thank you so much. Y'all make sure y'all check out the channel Brain Pilot. We appreciate you for the video. But yes, everything he pretty much said I agree with. This was a great season. It's definitely worth the watch. a lot of plot twists, a lot of things I didn't expect, but I'm excited to see what the show has for season 4. I'd say this show is probably either gonna have, I'd say at max they're probably gonna do 5. They usually don't do more than 5, or the next season will be the last season. But we'll see, because I don't know how many more ways they could take it after this situation is dealt with. I could see the season ending after this. But you guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you expect for season 4? How do you expect that to turn out in the grand scheme of things? But please be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in another video. I am out. Peace.